What's going on, everyone? I am just a typical, average American here today to react and learn about Nordic history. So, here in the United States, we are not taught anything about Nordic countries or Nordic history. I mean, we really only focus on American history here. Like that's really all we're taught about. And so today, I really want to take some time to finally learn about this. So let's take a look.
Scandinavia refers to the three northern European countries of Denmark, Norway, and Sweden.
Okay, I mean, believe it or not, that's actually something that most Americans don't even know. Like we have heard the name Scandinavia, but most of us don't even really know what that means. So it's good that this is starting from the basics. So that's Norway, Sweden, and Denmark. Okay.
Norway and Sweden cover most of the Scandinavian peninsula. Together with Finland, these are the Nordic countries. Iceland is also typically included as both a Nordic and Scandinavian country. Greenland
Okay.
and the Faroe Islands are both autonomous countries within the Kingdom of Denmark.
Okay. Yeah, this is already getting like way more complicated than I thought. So Iceland is part of this. Greenland happened to be like big news recently thanks to like Donald Trump wanting to take it over. So actually now a lot of Americans do know about Greenland and its relationship with Denmark. All of this to get I don't know what the Faroe Islands are. Never really heard of that, but all of these together comprise like the Nordic countries, I guess. So that's a good place to start. Okay.
The Baltic countries of Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia.
Baltic countries? What are these? I've heard of Estonia and Latvia and Lithuania. I've heard those names. I know those are countries, but they're Baltic? What is that? And they have some relationship to all the Nordic countries or the Scandinavian countries? I don't know. This this really could be like an entire class or something.
Also share many cultural and historical similarities with the Nordic countries. In the present
Oh.
day, the vast majority of the region's population lives near the coast. This was even more so throughout most of history. Dense
Oh.
forestation and little arable land led to small, close-knit communities forming by the sea during the region's prehistory.
That's interesting. So, in most of these areas, a lot of the population of Nordic countries is found around the coast, which honestly that makes sense to me that humans, naturally want to be by water because there's a lot of advantages to being by water. So, that makes sense.
The early cultures that arose there were compelled to become adept boat builders and expert fishermen. The introduction of crops and farm animals, which were first domesticated in the Near East, promoted a slow but steady increase in population.
Okay.
Competition for limited resources, and the harsh northern climate.
So, from what I understand, a lot of these Nordic countries like don't have very huge populations. Like Norway has like 5 to 6 million people, right? Like total. I don't know. Sweden and Denmark and Finland, are there like 10 million people in Sweden or something like that? Or I think so. Yeah, for whatever reason, throughout history, like these places are not the most densely populated places.
Meant that in scarce times, the constant raiding of one's neighbors became a way of life, fostering a warlike culture.
Oh. Oh. So, is that fair to say? What do people from, like, Nordic countries out there think about that? Is that accurate? Like, that Nordic countries have a affinity for war, and that's part of your culture? Or I know this all has to do with like Vikings too, or they come from this area, and Vikings are known for like, well, let's be honest, like taking over and sailing around and killing people, and they're cool and badass. And is that all part of the Nordic culture, I guess?
It is commonly believed that during the 3rd millennium BC, Indo-European languages replaced the older Neolithic languages of southern Scandinavia, either
Okay.
through invasion, peaceful migration, or slower cultural diffusion. In the
Okay.
Nordic Bronze Age that followed, the region prospered, as it became connected through intermediaries to the larger
Okay.
international trade network of Mediterranean and Near Eastern empires.
Right. Well, that'll be interesting to because yeah, like in the U.S., we learn mostly about American history, a little bit about like Egypt and the pyramids and like Rome, stuff like that. I don't know if everybody learns about that, but we're very selective about what we learn about. So the Nordic countries don't come up in American history classes, really. So hearing how they relate to the rest of the world history, like, I'm really curious.
Scandinavian amber has been commonly found in Bronze Age graves in Greece, while Mycenaean beads and gold from the south has been found in Nordic graves of the period. The Nordic Bronze
Oh,
Age culture had no written language. However, it is evident from the material record that their society survived for many centuries after the region-wide collapse of the Near Eastern Bronze Age empires in the 12th century BC,
oh my,
albeit in a much diminished fashion.
wow. So a lot of this history is uncertain. Like recorded history is, by its very nature, difficult to find and to verify, and a lot of history has been lost. And but it's cool how, based on like finding bronze and necklaces and stuff, they can see like the Nordic people interacted with lots of other cultures.
Throughout their late Bronze and early Iron Age, the Nordic peoples had little contact with the outside world, and there is little surviving material culture from this time.
Never mind. Never mind. Apparently, once the Bronze Age came, the Nordic countries did not interact with the world much. I wonder why.
It is believed limited contact with these peoples, or word of mouth, led to the Greek legends of Hyperborea, a land of giants in the north where the sun never set. In the
Huh.
Cimbrian War of the late 2nd century BC, several tribes from Jutland migrated south.
I can't help it but say that's so cool. That Nordic culture, like you had a reputation for like being scary, like giants, Viking, like American history isn't very long, and we don't have like a reputation like that, like in 100 BC. That's like ancient history to us. We didn't even exist. So it's cool. You got like, and you happen to have like this really badass reputation. So that's cool.
Defeating all of the Celtic tribes they came into contact with. These new people, who the Romans called Germani, or Germans, had migrated south because their homeland had suffered severe flooding. The Germanic tribes decisively defeated the Romans in their first 3 major battles with each other. Rome suffered the heaviest losses it had since the Punic Wars with Carthage. The
Wow.
Romans were able to regroup and decisively defeat the Germans. As the Romans defeated, slaughtered, or enslaved the Celtic tribes in what is now France, Germanic tribes from what is now Denmark defeated the Celts and consolidated their control over the territory north of the Roman Empire. For many
Okay.
centuries, the Romans held these tribes at bay with an extensive network of fortifications and garrisoned troops.
Oh, so there were Nordic tribes and people at war with Rome. I didn't know about all that, and we learn a little bit of Roman history. I didn't know about all that, and like specifically around Denmark, huh?
During the fall of the Western Roman Empire, the Ostrogoths, Visigoths, Vandals, and the Franks greatly contributed to the fall of the continental portion of the empire,
Oh
while the
wow.
island of Britain was conquered by the Angles, Saxons, and the Jutes from what is now Denmark and northern Germany.
Wait, what? Wait. People from the Nordic countries, it looks like it's coming off out of Denmark specifically, took over the United Kingdom? Britain? And other what? What is all that? What?
Over a relatively short period of time, These Germanic tribes converted to Christianity and formed kingdoms, many swearing allegiance to the Pope in Rome.
So are there Nordic descendants in modern day, like England and Scotland and like the UK? Like, are people there related to Nordic tribes in the past? You know what I mean?
By the end of the 8th century, Northern Europe experienced the greatest period of peace and stability since before the fall of the Western Roman Empire. This came to an end with the dawn of the Viking Age. In 790,
This is a huge part that I want to know, because that's a famous word in America. It's famous. Vikings. You're known for being scary. There's lots of movies and TV shows, and I don't actually know the history of Vikings, but that is Nordic culture. Like, that's where Vikings come from, right?
the Viking longship was one of the most impressive pieces of technology of its day. Its impressive design and shallow draft meant that it was capable of both sailing on the open seas and in constricting rivers better than any other ship of its day.
Whoa. So Vikings weren't just like mindless brutes with strength and scary, and maybe they had some of that, but they're also like really good ship builders, which is not, that's like engineering and like very intelligent. So I feel like that's a misconception here in the US. Like, Vikings must have been very, very, very smart to make these kind of ships.
The marauders who appear on the pages of history at the end of the 8th century did not refer to themselves as Vikings, nor did their contemporaries. To go Viking meant to go raiding. The three main groups of these raiders were the Danes, Norsemen or Norwegians, and Swedes.
That's who the Vikings are? And that's where the name Viking comes from. They didn't refer to themselves as that word. This is so interesting. I've wondered about this, like, for the longest time. And it was Danes, Swedes, and Norwegians that basically comprised what we know as Vikings. Okay.
All of these terms were sometimes used in a generic sense by outsiders to refer to all northern invaders. In the
Okay.
Anglo-Saxon kingdoms of Britain, they were often collectively called the Danes, because most of the Northmen to raid there were Danes. Denmark was the
Okay.
first Nordic country to form a large unified kingdom at some point earlier in the 8th century, while in Norway there were around 30 small kingdoms. The unified
What? This is getting very fascinating to me now. Just learning about like Denmark, the first Nordic country to consolidate and be like one kingdom. That's very powerful. And Norway, on the other hand, was like 30 different kingdoms or something. That's crazy how that all works. Like, yeah, this is fascinating. They really should have like spent some time teaching us about this in school. It's really interesting.
unified Danish kingdom must have aided them in the organization of larger campaigns. In the spring of 845, a fleet of 120 Danish longships sailed down the Seine River to Paris. They besieged and then captured the city, which
Danish Vikings captured Paris? What? How did we never hear about this? Imagine 100 Viking longships coming at you, by the way. Terrifying.
was ravaged and looted. They were convinced to leave after being paid a bribe of over 5,000 pounds of gold and silver. During the Viking Age, such
What?
bribes to avoid plunder were called the Danegeld, the Danes' gold.
That actually worked? Denmark took over Paris, France? Is that right? Took a bunch of gold and then left. What is going on?
And became quite common throughout Britain and the Frankish Carolingian Empire. 2 decades later, the so-called Great Heathen Army, a large coalition of Northmen, conquered much of the island of Britain and established Danelaw there.
I didn't know that Vikings took over Britain. This must be such a big part of like if you're British, like British history, this must be like something you learn but yeah, I didn't know that. This is like so crazy to me.
In 872, Harold Fairhair established the Kingdom of Norway, uniting many of the smaller petty kingdoms.
Oh.
In the east, The Northmen, predominantly the Swedes, sailed down the rivers of Eastern Europe, raiding and extracting tribute for decades. There, they were known as the Varangians, or the Rus. The Varangian Rurik established rule over a loose confederation of Slavic and Finnic peoples, called the Kievan Rus.
Wow, this is so interesting how each Nordic country had its like own, obviously its own history, its own path, and how it all got to where we are today. It's really interesting. And so, just like that, in the 1800s, or Norway was kind of unified, Denmark was already unified, Swedes are sailing down rivers, sort of plundering.
Rurik's dynasty ruled in some part of Russia for 21 generations, over a period of 700 years, until the death of Tsar Vasily IV in
Sweden ruled over part of Russia for 700 years?
1612. From the 9th through 11th centuries, many Swedes settled on the coast of what is now Finland. The Danes focused on controlling England, while the most north of the Northmen colonized the north of Scotland, parts of Ireland, and later, Iceland and Greenland.
What? Denmark controlled England? Sweden controlled part of Russia? Or that part of Europe? Norway controlled Iceland and Scotland? What is happening? They also went to Canada? What is happening? I feel like there's so many more details that I'm probably missing out on, but this is insane to me. Really interesting.
In the early 10th century, Rollo, a Norseman of either Danish or Norwegian origin, was Viking about in the northwest pointy part of France. The Frankish king was unable to effectively militarily deal with him, so he found another solution. He gave Rollo Normandy, which was named after the Norsemen. Rollo converted to Christianity and served under the French king as Duke of Normandy, and was charged with protecting France against other Northmen. Rollo's Francisized, French-speaking descendants were the Normans. During the early 10th century, the last Anglo-Saxon kingdom, Wessex, drove out the Danes and became the unified country of England for the first time. A few decades later, in 970.
There's so much to try to keep up with. I think this is just touching into like kind of broader European history. Well, it really just shows how the Nordic countries determined so much about European history. You guys had a huge impact on Europe. I never realized that.
The Swedes united under their first king, Eric the Victorious. That same year, Harald Bluetooth, king of the Danes, who had previously converted to Christianity, along with much of the country, conquered Norway. Bluetooth lost and regained Norway. His son, Sven Forkbeard, also lost and regained Norway.
Are these real names? Are these real names? Bluetooth? Forkbeard? It's amazing how, like, these are such momentous periods of history, with countries gaining and losing their sovereignty, and it's just amazing how in 10 seconds you can be like, oh yeah, then they took over Norway and then lost it and then took it over, and it's like, yeah, it's just amazing, like how so much happened, and now you just refer to it in like a sentence, like, oh yeah, took over them, did that.
And then conquered England. His realm has been called the North Sea Empire. After his death, the Triple Crown was split up.
I didn't realize, did he say Denmark took over Norway and England? I didn't realize England or the UK was under like Nordic control for so much. I had no idea.
A few years later, his son Canute managed to unite all three crowns again, after a decade of constant war in both England and Scandinavia. After Canute's death, all three kingdoms split again. Magnus the Good of Norway peacefully claimed the crown of Denmark as the result of a very good deal he had made. His brother, Harald Hardrada, succeeded him as king of Norway. Harald had previously worked as a mercenary.
Now are they saying Norway owned Denmark?
For the Grand Prince of the Kievan Rus. and then worked many years for the Eastern Roman Empire. He became commander of the Varangian Guard and campaigned throughout the Mediterranean. In 1066, both Harold and then William, Duke of Normandy, invaded England. The English defeated the Norse in the north, and then lost to the Normans in the south. Most historians consider Harold's invasion of England to be the end of the Viking Age. During the following...
That's the end of the Viking Age. There's so much happening. This is insane. It's hard to keep up with it all. Is this like... Do all Nordic people know this history? I would imagine. This is what you guys learn about, right? This is your history. This is so much crazy. Like, this makes American history look boring. By comparison, this makes the history of the United States look so boring compared to all this. This is crazy.
During the following 12th and 13th centuries, conflict internalized around Scandinavia and the Baltic. After the last Swedish pagans were either dead or
There was a civil war in Norway? Really?
converted to become good Catholics, the Swedes embarked on crusades to convert or conquer the Finns on their opposite shore. Sweden and Denmark then fought a very long series of wars to control Norway. To overly summarize them, Denmark generally had the upper hand in the early wars. The three kingdoms joined together to form the Kalmar Union, with one monarch for more than a century.
I think I've heard of that Kalmar Union. I've heard of that before somehow. It's amazing. Like Americans, we have no idea how much influence the Nordic countries, especially Denmark, Norway, Sweden, had. Like the Scandinavian countries had on Europe, determining so much about Europe, and how much conflict against each other, really. Like within Scandinavia, a lot of conflict. Most Americans, we have no idea. This is crazy.
The Kalmar Union was not really united and fought wars with itself. In 1523, Sweden officially split up with the Kingdom of Denmark-Norway, ending the Kalmar Union. Sweden generally had the upper hand in the later wars of the 16th and 17th centuries. Under the brilliant military tactician, Gustavus Adolphus, Sweden invaded the Holy Roman Empire during the 30 Years' War. The Swedish army had great success in aiding the German Protestants.
Yeah, the Nordic countries, like, I didn't realize how much you went south and frickin' invade. Like, at one point, Denmark took over Paris. I remember that. Now Sweden is going south, invading. What?
Gustavus Adolphus died in a major battle where his army was victorious. The Swedish were later defeated by the Spanish, who were supporting the German Catholics. The remaining Swedes withdrew to northern Germany for the remainder of the war. Sweden then resumed fighting more wars with Denmark, and also entered into a series of wars with Poland and Russia. In the Great Northern War, pretty much all of Sweden's neighbors went to war against it. The Swedish king, Charles XII, initially had a great deal of success.
Sweden was just fighting everybody?
Until he marched on Moscow. Things went downhill from there, and the Swedes eventually lost the long war. Russia established itself as a major power, while Sweden went into decline. During the Napoleonic Wars, Russia annexed Finland from Sweden. In the aftermath, Sweden received Norway in a trade with Denmark. Sweden still had to fight a war with Norway to compel them into unifying. Throughout the 19th century,
at some point, Finland got to become a thing. Norway is just desperately trying to, like, fight for its independence.
A large portion of Norway's population left the country. They predominantly resettled in the United States, particularly Minnesota and Wisconsin.
There are 5 million Norwegian Americans. I did not know there were that many. So there's a lot of people from Norway descended from Norwegians. I'm sorry, there's a lot of people in Minnesota descended from actual Norwegians from like hundreds of years ago. That's crazy. Most Americans do not know that.
In 1905, Norway became independent. Finland was able to gain its independence in 1917 as a result of the Russian Revolution.
Finland has only existed for like 100 years? Really? I didn't know Finland was that recent.
During the Great War, the Nordic countries were able to maintain neutrality. However, during the not so great sequel, Germany occupied Denmark and Norway, while Finland managed to retain its independence throughout the war, despite a
Oh.
massive Soviet invasion and having supported and then battling the losing Germans in the last year of the war.
Oh,
In
wow.
1949, Legos were invented in Denmark.
Okay. Okay. We're getting modern, recent. And suddenly we're at World War II, and then suddenly we're at Legos, okay?
And the Nordic countries proceeded to achieve some of the highest standards of living anywhere in the world.
That's true. I've heard about that. That Nordic countries are insanely successful, very happy, very good places to live. I've heard great things.
With decent furniture at affordable prices, lots of oil, delicious food, and some of the best music out there.
All right, IKEA, oil, music?
The region has a lot going for it today. This has been Epimetheus, and I hope you have enjoyed this video.
That okay, we're at the end. Wow. I should have expected this, but there is a lot more to Nordic history than I ever expected. So many things happened. So many wars, so much sailing and Vikings and going to Britain and France and Germany and then the Nordic countries fighting each other and Russia and Finland, and there's a lot. Oh my god. You could get a degree studying Nordic history, I bet. This is just like the basics. But yeah, I think I definitely have a much better general understanding of how the Nordic countries have come to be what you are now. But there's probably so much more detail to all this, but this was good. That's about what my American brain could handle for today. So that's fascinating. Your history is incredibly interesting and expansive and exciting and dark and yeah, it's probably way more interesting than American history to be honest, but that's cool. I'm glad I finally took some time to learn about this. So anyway, if you enjoyed this, feel free to give this video a like or leave a comment with your thoughts on all this Nordic history and if you know about this, or that'd be cool to hear about. And if you're interested in more videos like this, feel free to subscribe for more. And until then, thanks for watching and see you next time.